The Florida Gators are national champions. They beat Houston last night 65-63. They are one of 4 teams since 2000 to win 3 or more men's basketball championships. Florida is in the group with UNC, UConn, and Duke. What were your thoughts about this game?
Yeah, I mean, the whole game just kind of felt like it was waiting for Florida to kind of pull through. They obviously had a really bad shooting first half, and it kind of continued on into the majority of the second half. But once they turned it on, felt like they were clearly the better team. Obviously, props to Houston. I feel like just throughout the whole tournament run, they haven't been given enough credit. They beat some really good teams along the way, and then just been a scrappy defensive team all season long. So I just wanted to start with them. Houston's a really good team, and they play a different kind of basketball from it feels like the finesse and other teams where they're just running and gutting and outscoring you. That's kind of what the SEC was this season with teams like Alabama and namely Florida, who made it to the national championship. They scored 100 points at some point during the NCAA run, and felt like more of a team that would have had to outscore you. And Houston's game maybe could have adjusted to that, and it did for the majority of it. They weren't used to playing a physical team like Houston. Give them all the credit for that, but in terms of pure talent and skill, it felt like Florida was always the better team. And if Florida could just make a shot, if Walter Clayton could get anything going in the first half, that game really wouldn't have been close. I think they had something like 10 plus turnovers in the first half. Like it was just a Houston masterclass on defense and maybe a Florida disaster class on offense. And when you looked at the score at halftime, it was still super close. So going into that second half, it kind of felt like it was just waiting for Florida to take that game, and they eventually did, like they've done in the tournament all tournament long. They've been down in every single one of their tournament games except the first round, and they've obviously 12 points was the biggest lead that they had to come back down from. But they have been put in positions like that, and they were made for positions like that. And Walter Clayton didn't have his best game, only finished with 11 points. There was a lot of supporting cast people that had to step up, but they did. Elijah Martin also didn't have his best game, but the supporting cast stepped up around them, and they made shots when they needed to, and they overall had a really good game. And I personally enjoyed the national championship a lot.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a great game. I mean, obviously, we saw 3 really good games in for the finals here in the NCAA tournament. That was kind of the whole point with the 1 seeds making it this far. But yeah, like you said to start, definitely big credit to Houston. If there was any way that they were going to win this game, I almost felt like it was the way that they were winning this. It was this kind of game, and so I just gotta give credit to them. They gave Florida their best shot. They were like, Walter Clayton, maybe he didn't have it going. Maybe they were just going to say, hey, he's not going to beat us. Somebody else is going to have to do it. Regardless, he didn't score till 7.5 minutes left in this game. And then he ended with 11 points. So it's like, you're going to have to just give it up to them because Florida still made their free throws and they were able to get out of the press a couple times. There's a really, really close call. I'm forgetting exactly how much time was left on the clock in this game, maybe 20 seconds or so, something like that. You know what I'm talking about? Where it's kind of down, towards the scorers table almost, or maybe the opposite side where they threw a pass and a Houston defender fouled one of the guys for Florida. It was just it was a mess. It was 20 seconds to go. And that was their one chance to get a steal off the inbounds. And they weren't able to do it. But that was something that Duke would have been able to do. What?
I'm starting to put together what call you're talking about, but yes, it took me a minute there. I need the full picture for a second.
Oh yeah, yeah. So it's so if they were able to get that steal or something like that, then that would have definitely been able to give them a little bit of a boost, just like it did in the Duke game. But
Yeah, it almost felt like
Florida got it going.
they gave that game away to Florida, and then they were about to steal it right back like they did against Duke at the very end of it. Obviously, they kept it close throughout the whole game, and towards the end, they lose their lead for the first time. I think it was they took Duke. Florida had taken their first lead from since 8-6 in the first half. And it just felt like Houston had because of what happened, literally the game before, Houston had it in them to maybe pull it out. But obviously, we see that last possession, and clearly it just didn't.
Yeah, and Houston made a lot of shots throughout this game, but neither team really shot very well from 3. I mean, obviously both in the 20s, but there were some really huge shots from that Houston team where it felt like, okay, this is their night. Because LJ Cryer he made some remarkable threes, like answers. Whenever Florida would maybe make a shot, just go right down, and Houston would end up matching it. And there were some punches that you just think are almost knockout blows from Houston to this Florida team whenever just they were just scrambling on offense. And there were those huge runs, especially early on in this game, right? There was a big 8-0 run, I think, when the teams were kind of, I think it was
Top.
21-20, then it ended up being 29-20. And it was like Houston just their best shot. And I texted you actually during the game, and I said, look, if Florida like pulls this game out and they win this, I hate to say it, but we're going to completely forget about this Houston team because it's going to be Walter Clayton Jr.'s run with Florida, and then also the legacy of Florida, right? Because they've been so good since the mid 2000s, and or at least you know what I mean. They've been able to reach the top of 3 times since the mid 2000s, and they have their own story to be told. And I think this Houston team is going to get kind of like lost, but it's a shame. They really gave their best shot.
Yeah, and just like how like a lot of teams get lost, I feel like UNC losing on that buzzer beater is kind of one of the most memorable like final like championship losses. But after that, naming like championship losers it gets a little bit harder as time progresses, especially if the game isn't as good. Obviously, this one was lived up to a lot of the hype, but I mean, you look at it like a Houston team that's been doing this for years now, and with Kelvin Sampson at the helm. And in 2021, they lose to Baylor. Obviously, that game wasn't close, and that's kind of why that team gets lost in history. But that team was really good. They were still in the American Athletic Conference at that point, and they make it all the way to the Final Four as maybe like they weren't an underdog, but like still a really good season for that from them. Nobody really talks about it, but just in general, nobody really talks about the losers in college basketball, especially even if you get so close. So it is unfortunate. But my main takeaway from watching this, and just I guess college basketball in general all season long, obviously you know how like drastic the difference is from an NBA player to an average person, or NBA player to high school player, or NBA player to college player. But it is so stark. Like the fact that the offensive outputs were so drastically bad from like you have a few really, really good players in college, and you hope that those players can like carry the team's momentum throughout. Like, but it really runs through those players. And if not, the other players really do look like college basketball players. You just don't really see that with NBA. That's like the most drastic difference. Obviously, it's two completely different levels of basketball, but I think it's pretty evident when you're watching an NBA game as opposed to a college game. Even role players are making like some crazy shots or just like wide open shots that they should be making in college. It's a lot different. So I think that watching a national championship game where this is supposed to be like two of the best five teams in college basketball history, if this is like the best ever that we're seeing in KenPom ratings or whatever you want to do, just two of the best teams that we've ever seen in college basketball, it just makes it so that I texted you this, that the arguments where you can kind of have in football where maybe 2019 LSU is like it could beat up on one of the Browns teams that went like, went winless. Like that just isn't possible in college basketball. Like I couldn't, if you
And it's
played,
not even close.
yeah, if you had like the worst team in the NBA play either of these teams 10 times, I don't think they get a win. Like the college teams get a win. And if they do, it'd be by some miracle that like everything was just going wrong for the NBA team, which I think is just so interesting. And it just reminds you that there's two different levels of ball. A lot of these players won't make it to the NBA, but I mean, really good basketball to watch. And it was a really fun game, and just kind of what we were leading up to the whole tournament. Like everybody was saying, just wait another round, just wait to the Final Four. And it finally delivered, and we got three really great games, like you were saying.
Well, when you actually mentioned the which teams could win, I wasn't thinking like historically, but like I almost feel like some of the great, like the Kentucky one and done teams almost, not the Anthony Davis one, but like the Karl Anthony Towns one, maybe that could give a team a run for their money in a game, like if they can match up against one of those really, really bad Charlotte Bobcats teams of that era or something like that. But yeah, no. And the games are so different too. Like the way that they play college basketball, the sets that they run, I've heard about it, talked about it. And it's like it's not the same. It's nowhere near the same. It's like 25 years outdated. So I don't
Yeah.
even think they could do anything against any NBA team. I think every team in the Final Four honestly would lose by 50. If it really mattered and you had to play the entire game from start to finish, I think they would all lose by 50 points.
Yeah, and the college game is just so much more reminiscent of like the old game where it's kind of like feed the paint and like kind of like scrappy and like especially with Houston scrappy and hustle defense and all these great things which like are the like basis of basketball. But like when you get to the NBA, everyone is just so good that like you have like centers now that are like pretty good at shooting threes. You have like small forwards and power forwards who are not only athletic but like can pull up from essentially half court. So it's just like you don't see that in college basketball, and you shouldn't see that in college basketball because it is two different games. But like just when watching this and then flipping on the NBA, like also the same day, like watching the Heat game, it's just such a crazy difference. And it's no disrespect to these players. Like a lot of them like play really good brands of basketball. It just is completely different games.
Also, shout out Will Richard. Kept
Yes.
Florida in this game for a lot of it. So I feel like we hadn't mentioned his name. I can't remember if you did. So I just felt like he needed to get at least one shout out.
No, yeah, that was definitely one of the supporting cast members that like I said in general, but Will Richard was like named to the first team, all tournament team. Like he definitely deserved to be in there. I know there was a lot of like there was some cries for Elijah Martin. He didn't have the best championship game, so I could see why you put Will Richard in there, stepping up in the biggest moments. But yeah, I know there was some clatter for Janai Broom as well. I think they got the first team all tournament team right. And most outstanding player I think had to go to Walter Clayton just because of what he was doing before. Obviously, it's for the Final Four, but he put up 34 points and got them in that game. So I don't see how you don't give it to him. And he had a good second half too. Like the 11 points, really, like the couple and ones that he had really kept them in that game. And really, like they don't win that game, I don't think, without him. Although that first half was absolutely atrocious. It was like we just had a draft stock conversation. That first half like maybe wasn't great for it.